Pecha Kucha 249, where I extol the virtues of an X-Men series that is not canon and reflect on the benefits of actually paying attention for 1 hour at a time. So I've been doing less drawing and more reading comics, and I have to figure out how to balance those two things out. And from reading the comics I read, it made me want to think about the way I conceptualize images. Ghost of Tsushima provided me with a lot of influence. I wanted to create I was going to create a comic book page, and then I thought, let me create the panels using the actual art. I was going to draw the main character with leaves falling in front of him, which is a mainstay of the art direction of the game, and those leaves would actually contain separate images that kind of sum up the main character's story, struggle through the story. And I was determined to conceptualize this idea without committing to detail to the point where it would become a slog. And you don't know what's going on in these leaves, but this is kind of like an easier way to show you what I'm thinking. You probably can't figure it out, but to me it makes perfect sense. And then I had the idea late in the week, why don't I spend 1 hour doing something, it doesn't matter what. But what I found is I spent too much time trying to figure out what to do, and the best thing to do was just do something that was already on the table. So I was like, let's just spend an hour cleaning up this art that I didn't want to conceptualize. So I redrew the main character, and then I'm like, let's do as much of the leaves as I can while I still have time left. Just drawing the main dude took 30 minutes. And then I was like, well, what can I get? I saw this woman with her knife and the person in the background in the previous one. You wouldn't see it. And then like the main antagonist, who is evil not because he's enjoys it, but evil because it's expedient. Because the game is about the Mongolian Empire invading Japan through Tsushima, which is a small island off the coast of Kyushu. I think I caught that. And so this is what I had, having spent 1 hour. And the byword for this was clarity. The idea was, let me draw what I already drew and make it clear what it is that it's supposed to be. And I used the chalk brush. I used some textures. And I think I got quite a lot done, considering it was only 1 hour. One of the greatest ideas I did have, which was just a whim, was the idea of Wolverine opening a can of something using one of his claws. It turned into a clusterfuck when I decided pretty much all of the X-Men should be watching him do it for shits and giggles. So, in an hour I did what I could. I really shouldn't have put so many characters in this, but the point was not to do something specific. The point was to practice the discipline of sitting down and doing something consciously, timing it, and just proving, if I say I'm going to do it, I can do it. It's so fucking valuable, especially for me where I am right now. So Ultimate X-Men is part of the Ultimate Continuity, which no longer exists. I highly recommend this book to people who want to read superhero books as good as they can get without getting slogged down. I say read issue 1 to 33. This is about the X-Men, mutants fighting oppression, trying to save the world, and the racism that the X-Men encounter is so... In a world where we're used to people losing their shit over microaggressions, someone just bottles Iceman, who's 15 years old, after he saves them from a falling sentinel. It's hilarious. One of the strong points... Well, I mean, it's hilarious and disgusting, but yeah. One of the strong points of the book is it starts with a small cast of X-Men, and it gives you time to figure out who they are and figure out who you like. Please ignore the fact Wolverine is killing everyone, because it's happening inside his head. It's fine. It's irrelevant. The underpinning narrative of the entire first 33 issues is the war of ideas and the war of blood between Professor Xavier and Magneto, who are... They both want mutants to be treated fairly, but have the most appallingly different beliefs on how you do that. One of the things that makes this book so good is that it hotshots. Something ridiculous is happening all the time. Beast almost dies in the first, 10 issues, and this shit never ends. Almost every member of the X-Men gets almost killed. pretty fucking early on. What is hot shotting? Wrestling term Jim Cornette uses. You do extreme things like the WWE Attitude Era. For so long, people come to expect them. You can't do these things forever, and when you stop, everybody fucks off because you've become boring. Don't do it, but they can't help themselves. Another example of hot shotting is the idea that Jean Grey gets consumed by the Phoenix Force and effectively turns her into a god, an actual god with god powers. If she has god powers, why doesn't she just make the world heaven? You know, people ask questions like that and it ruins the credibility of the entire thing. When Brian Michael Bendis takes over writing after Mark Millar's 33-issue run ends, Daredevil, Spider-Man and Wolverine go on a hilarious adventure where nothing happens. This is also hot-shotting. It will sell comics, but it destroys the continuity of the X-Men. They're not even in their own comic. And then the third writer to take over, Brian Vaughan, is just burning characters like Mr. Sinister, turning him from like a Machiavellian several century schemer to some guy in a beanie and a tank top that throws dudes downstairs. I mean, it's hilarious, it's very entertaining, it's well drawn and it's well written, but it doesn't go anywhere. And ultimately it's why I stopped reading the run about 50 issues in. But it's still very good for a superhero comic, but that's a very big caveat. Superhero comics reboot all the time. They're stories that don't have ends. And this is summed up. I mean, this is just a random thing I just learned about today, because I can't even keep up with continuity shifts. Marvel had a fresh start thing where they put all of the characters who you expect to be the characters back as the characters. What does that mean? For a while, Tony Stark wasn't Iron Man, someone else was Captain America, and so on. They made a lot of money on the movies and decided that Tony Stark should be Iron Man again, because that's what they, because they want the movie fans to buy the comics. And effectively what it means is there's never any closure. Stories that don't have closure are worse than stories that have bad closure. As bad as Game of Thrones, the final season is allegedly, how bad would it be if they, instead of doing the final season, just restarted the show but recast some of the people and changed some of the plot? People would just lose their minds. This is what American superhero comics do all the time, and it demeans every time they do something good, like Ultimate X-Men. You need to find your own place to stop before they fuck it up, and I did, and I love everything I've read. I've got the first 11 trade paperbacks, and it dwindles off. Even by issue 50, it dwindles off, but I'd still recommend it. If you can find the PDFs and you've got nothing better to do, the art from issue 1 to issue 50, whatever, all of it's good. Bachelot, Lynch, the Cubits, brilliant stuff. I need to data mine this stuff just to become a better artist. And it's definitely good entertainment, but it's not high art. And I'm waffling on enough about this. Right, that brings us to the end of Pecha Kucha 249, and I will see you next time.